country in continental Europe. So we are so close to Africa, we are so close to the North American continent. Lisbon has a cape close by to the city called Roca Cape that is considered the westernmost point of continental Europe. So we have all our Atlantic influence coming from west and from the Atlantic Ocean. And Lisbon is considered south of the country, so we are in the southern part, and it has been the capital for a long time now, since the second part of the 13th century, so after 1250, that Lisbon has been the capital of the country. And as the capital is a big city, nowadays a city for services, we have practically no industries here, only services, but the population is quite high compared to other cities we have in Portugal. So we reach nearly 3 million inhabitants. But if we talk about Lisbon Center, it's a very hilly area. We have the 7 hills of Lisbon, and we don't have that much population living in the center of Lisbon. So if we talk about the center, we'll talk about 650,000 inhabitants. And then the rest of the population live in new residential sections that are part of the city, but not downtown area. So we see here some of the sections that were built in the late 60s to give Lisbon more apartments and areas for the population to live. It is difficult to build up in a city that is full of hills, as you will see as we approach the city center. A city that has been here for a very long time. We have the occupation made by the Mediterranean people, Phoenicians, Greeks, Carthaginians, and then the Romans came in and they gave us the first development of the city with an organized city in administration, in its politics, and the legions were here to help a population to settle. The first name to Lisboa, to Lisbon, was given by the Romans as Olisipo. And this name will be adapted later by different other inhabitants or people coming from different parts. So Romans stayed until the 4th century AD. With the fall and the decline of the Roman Empire, we had the arrival of the Visigoths. They were German tribes, but they already Christian people, and they introduced the first bishoprics in Portugal and Spain. So both countries had the same occupation. But unfortunately, that did not last for a long time, because we had the Arabs coming in from the north of Africa looking for land and areas for agriculture, and they occupied mostly of the Iberian Peninsula area. Here on the left hand side you have a monument to the Portuguese war against Napoleon troops. Napoleon War. Napoleon troops invaded Portugal in the beginning of the 19th century, and we were helped by the British fighting against Napoleon troops and winning all these battles. We have this monument here in honor of the brave Portuguese that defeated the French Napoleon troops. Well, after the Arabs stayed from the 8th century until the reconquest of the city by our very first Christian king called Alfonso, and this man was able to expel the Arabs. They went down to the south, and he started bit by bit a reconquest of the territory that he wanted to have for himself, and only one religion, the Christian religion, and he made it. Bit by bit he was able to conquer what we have nowadays as Portugal, from the north to the south, and the city became a Christian city. occupying only one hill in the beginning because there are so many hills, and then bit by bit the population started inhabiting different hills because with the growth of the population, with more the number of the population growing, it was impossible to stay in just one small hill. Why the hills? Because hills were defended by its geography. So it was easy to defend a city when up in the hill. And that's what happened here. So we have the hills occupied because they were safer places. And as time goes by and the Arabs were expelled from the peninsula, people felt safer and they started moving down the hill to the valleys. Left hand side we have our bull ring. Portugal still has bullfights, and bullfights are held here in Lisbon. This is Lisbon's monumental bull ring. Although it's not just used for bullfights, we also have because it can be covered and turned into a huge area for concerts, all sort of events that we may have, cultural, musical, or other, or even demonstrations can be held inside the arena if covered, when covered. During the summertime is open, and we have bullfights starting with Easter and going all the way to until October. It's a different bullfight from Spain. Then later we'll explain you all these differences. This is one of our boulevards, one of our avenues called Republic Avenue, opened late 40s, beginning of the 50s, as an exit of the city. The fields, they were called campus, the fields. But in the 16th, all this area was taken for construction and for apartments. We have here nowadays residential sections for Lisbon. Both right and left hand side you have streets going, and a lot of people live here in the center of the city. Buying real estate here in Lisbon is very expensive, so foreigners are the big buyers of old buildings that later are renovated and give beautiful apartments later, but very, very expensive. Common Portuguese middle class cannot afford to live in Lisbon Center. It's very, very expensive. An apartment, a flat here, with a 3-bedroom flat in the center of the city can cost 4 or 5 times more than in the suburban areas. So the population tend to go away because they can't afford to live in the city. And then we have this problem. It's an old city, and most of the residents have to leave the cars parked outside. There's no garage because it's difficult to go in the subsoil. So you see a lot of cars parked everywhere. They belong to the residents. Sometimes quite difficult to find a place to park in the evening. And it is very common to see people coming by car to Lisbon to work. The use of public transportation is, of course, good, and we have the metro going to the suburban areas. We have taxis, public transportation, public buses, and trains. But still, people like to come to Lisbon by car, and then it becomes quite expensive. And now petrol is very, very expensive.